Carl here from Wani, and today I'm stoked to be in the company of an integral part of the mighty Periphery. Here to talk with me today about their new album, for Hail Stan, is none other than Misha Mansoor. Misha, thanks so much once again for your time today, my friend. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Alright, cool, man. So this record marks a couple of things for you. One being that it is the first to be released on your own record label, 3 Dot Recordings. One of the liberating things about that is if you choose to open a record with a near 17-minute song, you can, which you did with Reptile. And I'm wondering if it was this newfound freedom that prompted you to decide on this as the first track, or what was the thinking behind it, man?
It's funny. I think a lot of people have associated our perhaps do whatever we want attitude with us, starting a record label and, put this being one of the first releases on there. But we always had creative control for what it's worth. We always, when we were with Sumerian, we were turning in albums, and that was the first time that they would hear it. Like, they were never part of the process, and that was contractually the way that it was laid out. Strategically on our part. Mm-hmm. So that hasn't changed much. But what I will say has changed is maybe the attitude, because we're still, being reasonable people, we will listen to what other people, on our team have to say. We just don't have to agree with it or act on it, right?
Right.
And I'd say that having our own label allows us to not have that pressure. If that makes sense.
Of course.
You don't have people. Yeah. So basically, what I can say now is everyone on our team shares exactly shares exactly the same vision as us, to where we don't have to have these silly arguments or discussions. Everyone kind of gets it. And between that and allowing ourselves to have a lot more time to write, like we took a year off for this. We never had the luxury of time. I think those two things made a big difference. And yeah, like, I don't know why we opened with that. I don't know why we wrote such a long song. It's actually the first song that we wrote. It might have been just because we were just itching to write. It was not intentional. Sure. Like, we really, I promise you, we really don't try to write long songs. But sometimes it just happens. You get caught in the flow, and it's just like, it doesn't feel like the song's over. So
right.
We just kind of keep going with it. And then we were like, it'd be kind of funny and kind of epic to just open up the album. Like, everyone would expect it to be at the end, so I don't know. It was just kind of funny, I guess, to put it up front.
I thought it was really cool, man, because it's an ambitious song, but it's an incredibly ambitious record. And I was wondering, and as you rightly said, you guys, you took a year to write this thing, and on your own terms with your own label. Do you think the record could have been made under any other circumstances, or did it require this freedom and your own time to become what it is now?
I'd say it required the time, and this is maybe the lesson learned. We're still getting better at being a band and writing music, and every experience is a learning experience for us. So maybe the biggest takeaway from this one is, take the time, because on previous albums, when we've had sort of stricter deadlines, the thing we didn't have this time was a strict deadline. It took a year because it took a year. But on previous albums, we've had strict deadlines, usually things that we agree upon, because it fits neatly into a schedule we're trying to adhere to. But when we have that, it sort of forces you sometimes to look at a song and you write it and you're like, okay, that's good. But you don't have time to sit with it and see how you really feel about it, to react to it. And that's something that we were able to do this time, is sort of have writing sessions, then take time away from it, and then come back with fresh ears and be like, you know what, honestly, I'm not feeling this, or I think we can do better. So some of these songs saw some pretty drastic changes, like almost unrecognizable changes between their first, second, third drafts as we kept approaching them. And as a result, I feel like I'm the most satisfied with how the songs have come out in every sense, just because we were able to further refine it with the time that we had.
Sure. I'm stoked to hear that, man. And one of the tracks that stood out for me personally, and I love it, is It's Only Smiles. And I think, and forgive me if you disagree, but I think it's got elements of electronic, it's very melodic, there's a real choir, and it's pretty devoid of heavier vocals. And it's quite a catchy number with hints of djent in there. Would this be fair to say, or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care what you call it. Call it whatever you want. That's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah.
To try to define it. I mean, it's just another song on the album to me. I really like it. That one was actually a labor of love too. That was one where.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that one saw a lot of changes. That's one where honestly, like, when it first was put together, it was a very, very different arrangement. Didn't even have that chorus, and I was not happy with it at all. I felt like something was wrong. But it was in one of those situations where maybe had we been on a tighter deadline, I'd been like, well, I'm happy with the rest of the song, so it's good enough, and the rest of the guys like it. But we had the opportunity to go back and revise it, and we revised it quite a few times. So that's kind of a good example of a song that I think benefited from the length of time that we had, the amount of time that we had to sort of absorb it and tweak it until everyone was genuinely happy with it.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And like, you guys broke quite a bit of new ground on this record. Perhaps most notably was you're enlisting a real choir. And I was wondering, like, you know, obviously the opportunity presented itself, but why was it important for you to work with a real choir this time around?
We've always had like varying degrees of choir. Usually it's me, Spencer, and a few friends in a room doing our fake choir, where we'll just do. We're like, oh, there's 6 of us, so if we do like 5 passes, then it's like there's 30 of us, and you can sort of make these makeshift choirs. I mean, we've done some pretty big number of passes.
You have, yeah.
Like, it would work out to like 100 people, but yeah. So we've been working with this guy Randy Slaw for a few years. Like I program a ton of orchestral stuff and choir and all that stuff using virtual instruments. And what we find is if you layer it with even a small section of real instruments playing the same stuff, not only does it make it sound more real, but it'll sound sort of unique from those virtual libraries. So this is something that we've been doing for a while, and he had access to a choir, so Spencer coordinated with him. So it was just kind of adding that layer of realism and kind of just another dimension to it. It's just another thing that we were able to work with Randy on. Well,
it sounds fantastic, man. So, congratulations. And like, I mean, the record is great as well. And it's chaotic, but it's brutal. But it's incredibly dark as well. And if my understanding is correct, while it might feel like the album was written from a place of turmoil, the vibe and relationship within the band, is essentially at its best. Was this statement accurate?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think we've just gotten better at being a band and figuring out how to work. I always tell people it's like any relationship, so
yeah,
with a friend, significant other, but it's 5 ways. It's that much more complicated. But if there's a willingness to work on your relationship, it's like kind of one of those things where all parties have to be interested in improving the quality of life, not just one or two. And I think I'm fortunate where everyone in the band is like that and has that attitude. So when we do have problems, we do address them, and we work on our communication, and it does bring us closer. And I think that we are now benefiting from that because we're figuring out how to work together, we're figuring out how to be in a band together, and that all just translates to, probably my favorite experience of making music with the guys.
That's fantastic, man.
This has come a long way because the first few albums were so stressful that, or Juggernaut was so stressful. I remember thinking, like, I don't know how many more of these I have in me.
Wow.
Like, not anything against the guys, just the stress.
Course.
The stress itself was just suffocating. And as of Periphery 3 was the first time where I was like, wow, this was an experience that I will treasure. And it's the same thing for this album. I think we sort of cracked the code on that for us. Knock on wood, it stays that way, but it feels like we've kind of figured out how to be a band.
Well, man, I'm delighted to hear that, and thank you for sharing that with me. And as I was saying earlier on, like the record, it is a dark record. I've been watching some of the interviews with the guys as well, and it's it's a self-confessed dark record, but it's still incredibly infectious for me, at least, anyway. And I'm just kind of wondering for you, when it comes to the end result of Hail Stan, is there any trepidation as to how fans will receive and digest this record, or are you all fairly confident, or do you care?
I mean, I always do kind of worry that, you know, whatever we put out will be the end of our career, because we write our albums very selfishly. We kind of let our fans know, like, hey, this isn't for you, this is for us.
Yeah.
But that's my only motivation to write. I don't really care to write for other people. If I'm going to write for someone else, it'll be like as a work for hire, writing for like, you know, a video game, or like, you know, a short or something like that, something where it's very focused. But writing for quote unquote the fans is not something that's interesting to me. I'd rather just not write at all. So I feel very lucky that people like our music, because of course they have no obligation to like or listen to what we make, but yet they do. So hopefully they like it so that we can continue to have a career. But it really wasn't something we were thinking about when we were writing. We really just want to have, the way I see it is, you're not going to please everybody, no matter what. Like, nobody does, right? So why bother trying? And like, I think the most disappointing or depressing thing that could happen is you try to write something to please fans or to please other people, and you kind of compromise what it is for yourself. And then it'll invariably disappoint people, and it'll also disappoint you in the long run. So I'd rather have something that where I'm like, you know, we did the best that we could with what we had. We really tried, and we made it for us. And even if people hate it, I can still be proud of it. And I'm very stubborn like that. So, you know, if I'm proud of something, I'll still be proud of it. And if I think something sucks, doesn't matter how many people tell me that they love it, I'll still think it sucks. So knowing that dynamic is probably why we write the way that we do.
Well, I love that philosophy, man, and thank you again for sharing it with me. And I won't keep you too much longer, man. But there is one thing I was curious to ask of you, because, you know, the title of the record is one that has sparked quite a bit of conversation. I mean, on the one hand, it seems the title doesn't really have any meaning, and on the other, it seems like each member of the band has their own meaning for it. And I'm wondering, what is your relationship with the title of the record, Hail Stan?
I'm going to flip that on you and ask you, what do you think?
Oh, you're going to flip it on me?
I'm going to flip it on you.
I quite like it because, you know, I think that it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think that, you know, if you were to add one letter in there, all of a sudden it becomes a very serious, or, you know, a thing with serious connotations attached to it. So I think you guys found a really cool and a real fun balance in the way that you put up that title, and then people have a look at it, and they kind of, that's the first thing their brain registers. But then when they look at it a second time, they kind of go, "Wait, what? Hold on." And I think it's a really nice play on you know, with words.
Cool, I like that. Let's go with that.
Cool, man. All right. I think that might be the first time somebody's ever flipped an interview back on me. So thank you for that.
Well, you answered my question perfectly, so I really have nothing to add. You did a great job there.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that, man. All right, dude, listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing some great insights. The record is fantastic, and I wish you and the guys nothing but the best of luck for the rest of the year and beyond, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the kind words.
Of course, man. I really hope to catch you out on the road someday soon, maybe in Dublin, Ireland. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'd love to make it out there. That would be a real treat. Knock on wood, right?
Oh, knock on wood indeed, man. Well, listen, have a great day, great weekend, and I'll catch you again soon.
All right, thanks so much, man.
Right.
You take care now.
You too, man.
Bye.